Good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank you for joining us for this week's Bible study here at the prayer page. We're going to be starting at Judges chapter 6, verse 24. We are continuing our series on the names of God. And as a reminder, if you are watching us either through our Facebook page or through our website, there is a small outline available from today's lesson. It'll be available in the comment section, both on our Facebook page, facebook.com/the prayer page US, all lowercase, or even easier on our website, theprayerpage.org, again, all lowercase there as well. And we're going to be starting off, I should say, at Judges chapter 6, verse 24. Now, before we go into the lesson, I want to talk about some things that have been happening with me within the last week. Most of you are aware of what's been going on, but there are a few people that just follow us exclusively on our YouTube channel. So for those folks, they may not be aware of what's going on. So for everybody else, just bear with me, because this is also going to kind of tie in with our lesson today. So back, about 6.5, almost 7 years ago, I noticed that I've been working in children's ministry for years and years and years, really going back since 1984. And even just now, as I was getting everything ready, as I'm doing my sound check, I was singing a familiar children's song, Father Abraham. And the kids would love songs like that. And I would just, I wouldn't just sit behind the Bible like a Ben Stein and God said, blah, 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 blah. It doesn't work with kids. Gotta really make it alive for them. And I love doing that. But there about sometime 2011, late 2011, or 2012, so that's actually been 6 years, 2012, I noticed that I was just having a hard time catching my breath in between songs and the stories, and it got to where I really just couldn't keep up anymore. And so stepped down. A few years later, started at the prayer page. But within the last couple of months, I've noticed there's been a progression where this has gone from getting from bad to worse. And so twice now I've been hospitalized, once in November and again in January, just having a problem catching my breath. And in January, when I was hospitalized, the doctors had even asked, they're listening to my lungs, and they're saying, have you ever smoked before? And I'm like, no, I've never smoked before. Even joked with them, the only thing I smoke is duck, maybe a little chicken here, but that's it. And you could see, and if you've ever been in that position where the doctors are asking questions and something just isn't right, they get that look on their eyes. Unfortunately, maybe some of you have never experienced that, and if you haven't, thank God. Because they're asking me that question, they ask me the question, I'm giving them the answer, and they just got this look on their face. It's just something is just not adding up. And so, after ruling out lung cancer, heart attack, emphysema, all this other stuff, they recommended that I see a pneumologist. So got that set up, and then the end of March, before I saw the pneumologist, they sent me to the hospital to do an outpatient clinic to do a series of breathing tests. And I was with them for about an hour. And the primary thinking was that it was COPD. So that was their thinking. I was trying to remember what it stands for, but I can't. But we've all heard, you've seen the commercials for COPD, blah, blah, blah. So that was the thinking. Well, this past Friday, May the 4th, I met with a pneumologist, and that's one of the reasons why we didn't have the Bible study last week between my birthday and seeing the doctor. It just cleared my schedule. So Met with the doctor on the 4th, an entomologist, and put up an x-ray. The week before that, I gone in and have x-rays on my lungs, and he put up the x-ray, and he showed me different things, and the conclusion was, he says, it's actually not COPD, it's the exact opposite. You have restrictive lung disease. Basically, my lungs, when I take a deep breath, just as deep as I can get, you really want as close, obviously, to 100% as you can get. Best I was doing is 71%. And what he's shown me is that where a COPD, the way he expanded it, COPD, think of a balloon that's been used over and over and over and over again. You deflate it. After a while, the lung is going to lose kind of its structure, its elasticity, and just kind of. Well, restrictive lung disease is the opposite. The way I describe it, or the way he described it, is how everybody thinks of your lung, and it's true. Your lung is basically a sponge. Got a bunch of air sacs in there that are going to draw in the air. Well, mine, I didn't quite get into this point, but it's hardening almost like your scrub brush on a pot. Those sacs are hardening. Once they harden, that's it. It's done. There's no way to reverse it. And they're also thinking, and I'm actually going in for a CT tomorrow, they're thinking maybe pulmonary fibrosis, which isn't exactly the way to lose some weight. Been losing weight lately. I've actually dropped some pant sizes, but I'd rather stick with Plexus or the gym for losing weight versus this. So prognosis, we don't know yet. There is no cure, and eventually, regardless if it's the restrictive lung or the pulmonary fibrosis, the condition will eventually get worse over time. How long? Again, we just don't know. Hope to get a better idea of that on Tuesday. So, said all that to say this. I am going to continue to still do the Bible study, but I'm going to ask everyone to please be patient with me, especially if you're sending questions or counseling or whatever. More than happy to do it for you. I love doing what I'm doing. It's been a dream of mine ever since I was a little boy. And now I get to do it. I've been doing it for 4 years. I'm loving it. But as we grow, I may not be, if you look on Facebook and Messenger, Facebook gives me a very high rating for responding to messages, responds very quickly. And I try to do that, but to be honest, I may not be as quick as what I used to be, because I do get winded fairly easily. So I appreciate your prayers. I'm not, God's not surprised by this. When he was hanging on the cross 2,000 years ago, he knew this was going to happen. So it's not like he's stunned and he's like, oh no, what are we going to do? He's not surprised. Now, a lot of people, when I release this information on the prayer page and Facebook, very good, kinded people were like, I am so sorry. And one thing I would hear, not a lot, not frequent, but a little bit, probably about 2/3 of the time was, this isn't fair. You're doing all this and all this has come up. This isn't fair. Which, my answer to that can go back to one of the very first Bible studies we did here at the prayer page. You look in the Bible, nowhere in the Bible does it say God's going to be, life is going to be fair. It doesn't say anything there. If you can search and search and search, you're just not going to find it. God never promised to be fair. He did promise to be just. And he also promised that two things. Number one, he has a plan for our life. That doesn't mean that plan is always going to be a bed of roses. There's going to be some storms that are going to come up. The purpose of those storms is to help us grow. But another thing he promised is what I want to talk about today. Judges chapter 6, verse 24. Now, here we have part of Judges where Gideon, you're hearing stories about quite a bit about Gideon. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about that, just because I get quite winded easily. You want to know more about it? Read Judges 6. But what I will say is this. Beginning of verse 22. At verse 22, we see where Gideon builds an altar to God. In verse 24, it says, Then Gideon built an altar there unto the Lord, and called it Jehovah Shalom. Unto this day, it is yet an Ophrah of the Abiezrites. You know, these people like the Abiezrites and all these others, the Otherites, they're gone because they can't pronounce their names. But Jehovah Shalom, that's what I want to talk about today. You've heard that word Shalom. If you've been walking on this planet more than 20 years, I'm sure you've heard the word Shalom at least once. The word Shalom means peace. Now, here you have Jehovah Shalom. If you're following our outline, you'll notice that first word is YHVH. Remember, Jehovah, this is the Hebrew way of spelling Jehovah. And remember, or Yahweh, I'm sorry, the way they consider the word or the name Yahweh so holy, they won't even write the entire name out because they don't feel worthy to write that name. But Yahweh Shalom, Jehovah is peace, Jehovah Shalom. And again, it's a proper name location. The translation is Yahweh Shalom, which Jehovah Shalom, it means Jehovah is peace. God himself is many things as we have studied over the last 9 weeks. Got another 7 to go. He's many things, but the one thing that I love so much about him is that he is a God of peace. He's a balance. Yes, there's times where he will be at war. There's times that you will see his wrath, but there's times also that he will be a God of peace, and he'll bring peace into our lives. And as I was studying this passage and getting ready for the lesson, and honestly thinking about the events of this past week, there is a verse in the New Testament, Philippians chapter 4, verse 7. Paul's writing the note to the church at Philippi, and he's getting toward the end of the letter. In verse 7, he says, And the peace of God, which passes all understanding, shall keep your hearts and minds through Christ Jesus. Now, that word peace, Greek word is eirene. It means peace, peace of mind. And I've experienced this more times than I can count, which granted isn't necessarily that high, but I'm telling you, time and time again, I've either experienced it myself or I have seen God work in somebody else's life where they've experienced it. The best example for myself, I've shared this before, I'm going to share it again, was really the first time that I remember really experiencing this. I heard about it before in Sunday school, in junior church, and even in the teen youth group. But 30 years ago next month, June 4th, 1988, God called my grandmother home. Now, I had known prior to that day that she'd been sick. I'd even seen her on her birthday. But all I really knew is, okay, she's sick. Something's going on, but she's strong. She'll eventually recover. She'll be home. It's just taking a little longer than normal. She's getting, mind you, I'm 17 years old, and I'm like, she's 65. She's ancient, you know. It takes them longer to get to recover. closer I'm getting to 65, the more I'm realizing that was just rude. But that was my thinking. And so when I found out that afternoon that, my mother come to me and had told me that Grandma was not doing well and the doctors don't expect her to survive the day, I kind of got by myself and had a discussion with God. Let's just put it that way. Not a happy camper. I was livid, to say the least. I was not ready for her to go. And I chewed God out pretty good. I'm like, I'm not ready for her to go. I want my children to be able to meet their great grandma Tompkins. They need to know her. They need to meet her. They need to see the godly life that she is living. But not realizing that that was selfish on my part. She had lived that godly life. She had followed the course that God had set for her, and her time was done. And after I kind of left off some steam, I got to realizing, okay, this isn't, yeah, I want her to stay, but that's not necessarily fair to her. So with an attitude, I definitely was not as clean and pure as the wind-driven snow. I basically sat there. I remember I sat there and I'm like, all right, God, you want to take her? Fine, take her. Well, let me tell you, you had better help me, because this isn't just going to work. You had better help me. And I literally had an attitude with God and told him, look, if you don't help me, we're going to have a problem. Let's just say he helped me. It was the little things that happened. She died. It was on a Saturday. She died like 5 o'clock, I think it was, 5, 6 o'clock. I didn't know for sure until the next morning, but that was because I had holed myself up in the bedroom. I really didn't want to hear it. So the next day, obviously the next morning, Sunday morning, I had heard about it. And Sunday, Monday, until that Tuesday when she was, we had her funeral and she was buried, God did little things that they're just real personal. I really can't go into a lot of detail, but just little things that to this day, almost 30 years later, I look back at that time and I'm like, wow, okay. Sorry about the attitude, which he understood. He understood. Jesus himself wept when a friend of his died. In John 11:35, shortest verse in the Bible, Jesus wept. So he got it. So tying all this for where I'm at right now, I have no idea what the future holds with me with these lungs. I know my immediate future. As soon as I'm done with this video, I'm going to take a nap. But past that, I have no idea. Not a clue what God has in store for me. Not a clue. The only thing that I do know is what he promised in Jeremiah 29:11. And I meant to have this set up and I forgot. Bear with me just a moment. Oh, and by the way, side note, got a package this morning in the mail with this Bible, brand new Bible. It's a minister's Bible. It has notes for weddings, funerals, whatever. And I looked and there was a note in there that just said, from a friend of the prayer page. So if you're watching this, thank you. I like my new toy. I love this. This is going to come in handy, especially when I officiate my brother's wedding come August. But I digress. Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the thoughts I think toward you, said the Lord. Thoughts of peace and not evil, to give you an expected end, to give you a hope. God has a plan for me. Hopefully, between you and me, yeah, I would love to stick around for at least another 30 years. This morning, I just saw the ultrasound, the very first ultrasound of what my wife and I are referring to as Baby Bear. my third child. Technology is just insane. The baby's about 7 weeks old. Oh, 7 weeks today is what they're calling it. 7 weeks old. With a heartbeat. And not only, I knew we would be able to see the heartbeat, but what blew me away is, I had my glasses on. You could barely see. I'm trying to see if there's something yeah. The baby itself is about the size of this tack. Let's see it. Okay. About the size of this thumbtack. But inside that thumbtack was this little, I call it a little light. But it wasn't a light, it was the baby's heartbeat. Not only could we see the heartbeat, they could measure it. 133 beats per minute, at a pulse rate of 133 beats per minute. At 7 weeks. I want to watch my baby grow and become an adult. Become a productive member of society. And I hope to God that is my prayer. That may not be God's will. I don't know. But what I do know is that not only does God have, Jeremiah 29:11, not only does God have a plan for me, He has a plan for my yet to be born baby. Isn't that exciting? He has a plan for my unborn child, and that's what gives me peace. Is that regardless of what happens to me, God is under control. God will take care of me. He'll take care of my wife. He'll take care of my children, my 2 adult children, and my baby. But here's the thing. Just because I'm a reverend doesn't give me exclusive rights to that. God has that for everybody. For you and for me. So regardless of the trial that you're going through, whether it's health-related, finances, troubled marriage, whatever it might be, our job is to trust in God. Proverbs 3:5-6. Trust in the Lord with all our heart and lean not unto our own understanding. And always acknowledge Him, and He will direct our paths. So our job is to trust Him, and when we do that, we can know that God is in control. And regardless of what happens, it's going to be all right. Everything's going to be fine. I sleep well knowing that. And not only do I sleep well knowing that, I just love it. I just love it. I mean, seriously, in this crazy, uncertain world that we live in, and I'm going to be done here. In this crazy, uncertain world that we live in, I mean, every time you turn on the news, something crazy is going on. There's one sure thing. Our God. And this love letter that He wrote us. And so I would encourage you as you read, first of all, if you're not reading His love letter, read it. Read it. If you don't know where to start in the Gospel of Mark. It's action. It literally goes from one story to another, to another, to another, to another. Mark had serious. Man, today's parlance, that man was hyper, extremely hyper. So if you don't know where to start in the book of Mark. But read this. Read his love note on a daily basis and talk to him. He will lead you. I'm telling you, he will lead you. And you don't have to worry about it. Like, okay, such and such happened. It's your problem, not mine. You own me. You fix it. Have a little bit more respectful attitude, but you get the idea. So, thank you so much again for watching. We are going to have, I'm looking at my calendar here. As a reminder, we are going to have another Bible study next week. The weekend before Memorial Day, I am taking that weekend off as well. I'm not planning on taking a lot of other weekends past that. We'll see. I want to keep doing the Bible study as long as I have breath in my lungs. So, but that's up to God. I will say this real quick. Serious ADD today. Lord willing, my wife and I will be parents of a new baby the end of this year. Due date's December 27th. So for the first 6 months of next year, from approximately January through May is what I'm thinking, so 5 months. Unless something changes, I'm not planning on doing a Bible study like I'm doing right now. However, we're going to look at the best of the best. I'm going to each week during that time, each week I'll pull into the archives here at the prayer page, and we'll pull out a lesson from the past for you to review. So we're not going to completely not have a Bible study, but those first couple of months, I can't guarantee when baby bear will be hungry or not. So that's my plan right now. I've been talking to the Lord about that, and I believe that's the direction that we're going to go. And then once we get started, though, I've got something so awesome that I'm excited about sharing. We're going to go through a series of individuals ordinary people that God used. I've listed these people a couple of times during comments, evening prayer time during the prayer page, but we're going to take a bit of a deeper look into that starting next year. Reason why I'm doing that is that once we're finished with the names of God, believe it or not, God has names for us. He identifies us ourselves by some names, and that's going to actually take us into the end of the year. Quite a bit of names, so we're excited about that. So, all right, again, and the t-shirt thing, I normally don't like preaching in a t-shirt. I do apologize, but it's just easier for me to put this on. So, breathing is highly overrated. Thank you so much again for watching. Have a safe weekend. Oh, mothers! Happy Mother's Day. I know my mom watches, so hi, Mom. Love you. My mom rocks. Be sure to reach out to your mother, give her a call, a card, take her, if you're close enough, take her out to dinner. All your mothers out there, have a great and happy Mother's Day. Thank you so much for all that you do, and until next week, God bless.